Today we are going to be canning pureed pumpkin. And the reason that I can it pureed is because what I use it for is pumpkin pie, muffins, and breads, which all require that it be pureed. And I'm using 2-cup jars. I have 6 that have been washed in hot soapy water. I have 6 rings and 6 lids, which I'm putting into hot water right now for sterilization. It also loosens up the wax a little bit on the lids. You want to separate the lids when you put them in because they will stick together. And that will help the seal when we loosen those up. I have a jar filler. Fits nicely in the jar to fill it up. Canning grippers and canning grippers to tighten the jars, and a magnetic wand to pick up the lids and the rims so I don't get my hands burned, and gloves to protect my hands. Now what I've done already is I've taken the pumpkin, I've cut it in half, put it the meat side down, put it in the oven, and baked it at 325 for between an hour to 2 hours until it's soft. And so that's been pre-prepared. And if you notice, I put foil on my cookie sheet. I always put foil on my cookie sheet. I want to save the actual cookie sheet lasts longer that way. And it's not as big a cleanup. Love to save time on cleanup. So the first thing that we're going to do now is we're going to get our pumpkin into the pan. The pumpkin is cooled down so that I can handle it with my hands. But we're going to want to put it in the pan and put it on the stove and heat it up so that we make sure that there's no bacteria or anything that will make the pumpkin go bad in the canning jar. We want to be very careful, common sense. Anything that sits out to room temperature, bacteria starts to grow, so you want to heat it up to the proper temperature to kill all the bad stuff before we put it in the canning jars. Now, I know that when we pressure cook it, it heats it up then and it might kill it, but you know, twice is better. I'd much rather be safe regarding bacteria and having healthy food than take any chances. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting these in half to where I can handle it. And then I'm just going to take a fork, and it's real soft. We can just take it away from the skin, because when we heat this up, we're also going to be mashing it really well so that it ends up being a puree. So, get this out of the way. Hands. Now we're going to go ahead and heat that up. And it doesn't take long. I mean, you don't have to, you're not cooking it, you're just heating it up to save from having any bacteria or anything. Okay, I washed my hands, and now I'm going to start mashing it. I want this mashed up good. This is going to be a puree. Now you could put it in your blender or a bullet or something like that to puree it. Gloves on. Tools here. So what I want to do is 2-cup increments, because that's what I use in my recipes. And it comes out pretty clean, so that's always nice. You're not having to dig at it. I'm going to do that just to make sure that it's packed in properly. Two cups. Shake your jar a little bit to get it down there. And then go to the next one. Here we are. I'm going to use the large pressure cooker because only 4 of these jars fit in my small one, and I want to get them all done at once. So you want to make sure your plate's on the bottom, and it comes with the pressure cooker. And you put the water in, and you'd only want the water to come like an inch below the rim. So we're going to put all 5 in here. And there we go. And I'm going to add a little bit more water. Actually, there we go. Still have my pan with the lids. So, there we go, and good. All right. Now this pressure cooker has a gauge on the top, which when it gets to 20, when it gets between 15 and 20, that's when I start counting my time. And I want it to pressure cook for 30 to 45 minutes. Put the lid on where it fits, where the handles will line up. It's got the little bob on here. When that starts making noise, that's when I start my timing of 30 to 45 minutes. And I watch my pressure. You don't want to go over 20 pounds of pressure. It says caution on there, which is nice to have a gauge. The other one doesn't have a gauge, but you can kind of tell by the noise it makes. So we'll go ahead and get this started. And that will be the last step. The pressure cooker's been cooking, has been going, and I let it get to 15 pounds on my gauge. And this little thing was singing pretty loud, and I turned it off and I've let it cool down. It's still hot, but it's depressurized. And if it wasn't, there's a clip here that wouldn't allow me to turn until it gets below a certain pressure. And, ow, when you take it off, be really careful because it's still hot. And I'm using these to take it out, and I'm reaching in and grabbing it, and it looks really good. The seal looks good. The jars itself look good. And you can see where the rim and the lids are still that nice color because I did put a tablespoon of vinegar in the water to keep it from discoloring. And we're going to take them out, set them off to the side, and as they cool down, you'll hear a snap. If there isn't already a good seal on it, there'll be a snapping sound, and that will be the seal finishing up and the jars themselves depressurizing. And there we go. We now have 5 cans of pumpkin puree. That's 5 pies. And once they're cooled off, I'll put them in my pantry and we'll have them during the winter. I do have 2 more in the oven, so I plan on having about 10 to 15 jars this year, just from 2-3 pumpkins. So, and we'll see you again soon.